Hey, hi friends, welcome to today's video. So today we are going to discuss about technical debt. Now this is not the term which is related with iOS. This is related to what we do when we develop or when we work on any project. Now we all have heard about financial debt. Now what is financial debt? That when you lend money from someone or from some bank. Let's say that if you have to buy a house or you have to pay for your educational fees or any other work, then we borrow money, and that we call as a financial debt. Now, what is this technical debt then? So, if you see the definition, technical debt describes what results when development teams take action to expedite the delivery of a piece of functionality or a project which later needs to be refactored. In other words, it's a result of prioritizing speed delivery over perfect code. Now this line makes sense, and I think every one of you have gone through this phase. Like when we are working on a application or a project, it happens that sometimes your Scrum Master or your project manager asks you to deliver some tasks in a very limited time, maybe due to some tight deadline or due to some releases. And in that case, what happens? Sometime we misses few things. Now that few things can be multiple types. Let's say that we miss the proper architecture, we miss the proper documentation, we miss the test cases. So it can be many things to actually deliver that product. And what we say in that case, that in future when we will get that time, we will fix that. Okay. Now sometimes we actually fix that by taking the time in next sprint or whenever that deadline is finished, but sometimes we don't document it properly and it somehow misses, and that actually creates a lot of problem. That can create problem in the maintenance of the code because we didn't write proper test cases. So let's say that if in the future some issues is coming, it will be hard to debug, it will be hard to maintain, it will be hard to scale also if the code is not proper. Okay. Now there are multiple types of tech debt. So if you see, the first one is deliberate and reckless. Now let's understand these terms with the financial debt. Now let's say that we don't have much money with us. Let's say that my debit card is not having that balance, but I have credit card. And in the same time, there is a great offer comes in the Amazon or any other website. Well, now what happens that at that point of time we are tempted to buy some product even when we don't have money at that point of time. Credit card is something like we are borrowing money, right? It's not your money. You are spending someone else's money and then you are repaying at the end of the month, or maybe you are repaying at some EMI. No, so it means that you were not ready for this Amazon shopping. It just came out of nowhere and you did your shopping, but at the end of the month or maybe next month you are going to repay the bill of your credit card. So it was not planned, but you have the backup plan to pay your credit card balance or pay through the EMI. Now same thing, let's understand in terms of the technical debt. So it happens when the team knows that a particular decision will result in tech debt, but still the team moves forward and prioritize the task or prioritize the speed over the quality. However, the team might not understand that the repercussions of that decision. The team does consider aspects like long-term impact and the approximate final cost, making the deliberate decision also reckless. Now, this type of decision mainly happens. Let's say that, for example, you are working on a startup company and you have to build your MVP so that you can get no like some sort of funding. And in that case, when you are actually developing MVP, you know that you are doing some sort of technical debt, maybe in terms of a proper architecture, proper test cases, or any other thing. Like there are a lot of things. Let's say that a build process, design debt, documentation debt, infrastructure debt. There are a lot of things that you do at that point of time. Okay, but you know all these things, and later once you will have the proper funding, you are going to solve all that issue. Okay, so even though this tech debt was intentional, but you are sure that you will be able to achieve this goal and you will stick to this tight deadline. And once you have proper strategy, you will be solving all your debt. Okay. Now let's see the next one. Now this is called deliberate and prudent. Now again, let's understand this term with the financial debt. Now let's say that, for example, you want to buy a house and you don't have a proper full balance to pay in one go. So generally, like for house loans, we go for EMIs. Let's say that if you don't have enough money, but that happens when with a proper planning. Like it's not like your Amazon shopping that came out of nowhere. You plan for your proper EMI that based on your salary, how much EMI monthly is going to be paid for your house loan, and what is your other expenditures. So everything is well planned, and then you take your financial debt for your house loan. Okay, and you are again sure in this case you have the proper plan that how the whole loan has to be repaid back. Okay, now let's understand the same thing now in the terms of the technical debt. So in this debt, the team knows that a decision will cause tech debt but moves forward anyway. But unlike this reckless debt, in this case, the decision is made after analyzing all the consequences. Let's say that when you are doing some tight deadline projects, so what can be the deadline? It may result in some last minute issues, or it may take some longer time to implement some new things later because your code is not in a proper scalable format. So you know all these things, and then you are taking the decision to prioritize the speed over the quality. Okay, but the team decide that debt is acceptable, and if the payoff for an earlier release is greater than the cost of a technical debt. For example, let's say that your Christmas sale is coming and you have to deliver some features which is very important that should go before the Christmas, right? So in that case, you are ready to take that challenge, or you are ready to accept that debt, that some features might not go with in a proper coding format with proper test cases, but the end result is same. Even if I go with all the coding guidelines, all the test cases, all the proper architecture, and if I misses something, my end product is same. That means the user is not seeing any difference. Okay, so in that case, the product can have some more benefit to the users for the Christmas sales, and then in this case, the tech debt is actually benefiting you. Okay, so in this type of technical debt, the team analyzes the risks and creates a plan of action to carefully and effectively handle the consequences of the tech debt, thus reducing the harm to a minimum. Now, once your company or once your organization achieves the goal or meet the deadline they were aiming for, the team goes back to fix all the issue, refactor the code, and apply the best practices. Okay, so that means that you have your proper backlog where you have created all your story, all your tickets to refactor the code, to write all the test cases, or to put everything in a proper format that you would have done if you would have given proper time. Okay, so in this case, the chances of missing anything is very less or is negative because you have everything planned. You have your confluence page, you have your Jira ticket, everything ready for that. Okay, now let's see the third one. Now this one is inadvertent and reckless. Now this type of tech debt is the most harmful tech debt for any organization or for any product. Now this type of tech debt happens when the team doesn't have enough experience and implements anything without thinking or without having a proper outcome, pros and cons, and this leads to in a tech debt. For example, let's say that you have to implement analytics in your code, and there are a lot of analytics third party which is available in the market. But what you did, you didn't plan for the costing, like the per year costing, or what will the billing that will be done, or the same thing goes for the cloud. Let's say that you have Azure, we have AWS, Google Cloud. So which one is most cost effective? You didn't have a proper discussion or proper planning on that. You just directly implemented it, and later on you figured out that some other plans were more better for you, And in that case, what will happen? This will cost your company a lot. Now, other thing that comes into this is a developer who is not good into his coding skills. Let's say that we hired some low skill developer due to some budget issue, and obviously when you hired a low skill developer over a high skill developer, the coding quality will automatically degrade, because the low quality developer will not focus on actual the coding quality, they will more focus on the outcome, and that can result in a technical debt. So lack of knowledge can also lead to unwanted issues. Let's say that we are hiring some developer who is not a great in the domain that he is supposed to work, and that can lead to some sort of technical debt. So due to the lack of skills, due to the inexperienced devs, this type of tech debt can occur. Now the best way to pay this type of technical debt is to hire experienced developer, experienced designers, experienced architect to write your code in a proper manner. So if the coding is not properly followed, if there's no proper documentations, like many times I have seen that in some domain, let's say for example in airlines domain, there are a lot of business logic which is handled at the client level, and if you have not documented your code properly, if you have not written the code properly, it will be headache for someone new who doesn't have idea to actually change something. Because if let's say that you are going to make a change, you will not have the confidence that it will not break anything. Okay, now let's see the next tech debt, and this is called inadvertent and prudent. Now let's again understand this first in the terms of financial debt. Let's say that if you are very well organized and planned person, you are doing everything perfectly, but suddenly, as you can see, the war is going on between the Ukraine and Russia, and the fuel prices have increased a lot, right? So due to some sort of thing, your financial expenditure got increased, and that you cannot avoid, right? It's like unseen, you have not seen what is going to happen in your future. So that can also result in a financial debt. Now the same thing happens in terms of tech debt. For example, that your team is very great, that you had the most experienced person, most knowledgeable person, and they are doing everything as per the software design principle. But in that case also human error can happen, right? There can be some mistakes that can be done in the coding, there can be some mistakes which can happen in the architecture, and that can lead to this kind of tech debt. Okay, now it can also be related with a learning and the innovation. Let's say that if you are iOS developer, then Swift UI is a new thing. So even if you are great in Swift and UI kit and you started working with Swift UI, initially you can do some mistake as per the Swift UI proper code architecture, and the same thing goes for the Android. Let's say that you started working with Compose, core routine. So these things, when you are working for the first time and you work it after 1 year, when you are working throughout 1 year, you get more experience, and then you write the same thing in more better manner. What happens that when you work, let's say that when you're working on Swift UI for a longer time, you yourself understand that what is the better way to implement this. Okay, but that you can solve because you know what you're doing wrong, and then you solve it once you have time. Okay, now let's see the next topic. Now let's come to this part, that is all technical debt bad? Now again, transfer this question to that, is all financial debt bad? The answer is no. If I have to buy a house and I'm taking a financial debt, I'm taking a borrowing money from bank, I have proper plan, and then finally the house will be mine. Okay, or let's say that if I have to give money for my college and I'm paying for my education fees, finally once I will be graduated, I will be having a job. So that money which I borrowed for my study is paying me in terms of my job, in terms of my technical skills that I get, or the degree that I get from the college. So all the financial debts are not bad. Now what type of financial debts may be bad? Let's say that I went to casino and I just blindly played the game and I lost some £1,000. So that kind of financial debt can be bad. So it again depends on what financial debt is good and what financial debt is bad, and that you can decide. And the same thing happens in the technical debt also. Like some technical debts are good and some technical debts are bad. For example, I was talking about a startup. So when you are building a startup, you cannot take all the process into the picture. You cannot write a full documentation in a proper manner. You have proper build pipelines, proper architecture, because you have crunch of resources, you have crunch of money, and that can lead to some sort of technical debt. But if let's say that your MVP is ready and you get your proper finances, like proper funding for your startup, then that technical debt proved to be good for you, right? So most companies today are very competitive, right? Like they are pressure from the market and other companies to shift the feature or to develop the feature very fast. And this needs for speed leads many product and software development teams to make the trade-off between taking on technical debt or launching it later. Now the question comes at how we can avoid technical debt. Now there are multiple ways. The first thing that we can do, we can educate our team. Like we can educate our team that what a low quality solution or low quality architecture, low quality code can result into. We can also have a clear project plan. Like once you start developing a project, you should have your proper project goals and metrics, that you should have a proper definition of done in your Jira ticker when you are developing any functionality, that what you are going to develop and what you are going to deliver. You should also have a proper test functionality, proper test scenarios that should test all the deliverables, so that any gap or anything or any sort of flows can be identified. Okay, okay, so that's all for today's video. Hope you have enjoyed watching it, and if you have not subscribed the channel, then please do subscribe it. Thanks for watching. Thank you.